everyone, Vickie Magic here from Wake Up, You've Got This. So today's podcast we have the amazing Kym Cousins. Welcome, Kym.
Hi everybody.
So Kym, I'd love to invite you to tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are and what you do.
Okay. I grew up in Adelaide in a quite large family, and I've spent a lot of time travelling over the years. And I think that for me has been the biggest way of learning about everything to do with life, because I know that's what we're talking about here today. But I left Adelaide and sort of started my journey, which was meant to be a working around Australia holiday, and went to Alice Springs, and I stayed there. And people say, gee, that's a bit of a crazy place to get stuck, but it was an amazing place to get stuck. It was very young and social, and I learnt a lot about, I was working in banking at the time, and I ended up working in casino, so that was a lot of fun. And from there I continued this travelling sort of journey and took myself overseas, backpack. Well, the idea was to backpack, which is what a lot of people do. Again, I got stuck working because I like to work, and I sort of have always been one to pave my own way. So I found that I worked in London and stayed there for quite some time, but I was there to travel. So after good old Chernobyl blew up in 1986, there were opportunities for people to work on the tours because a lot of the staff pulled out. So I got a gig working for Top Deck. I'm sure some people can probably resonate with stories of Top Deck tours, as a tour guide working through Russia and Scandinavia and through the Eastern Bloc countries.
Oh, wow, that's amazing.
So where did that leave me? So I ended up back in Australia after that time because, you have to sort of jump back into, I guess, a career. I could have continued to travel forever, but I wanted to make sure that I came back and set down roots. So I landed in Sydney, and I lived in Sydney for 30 years. And I forged a corporate career with some really large IT companies in Australia. I started with Telstra, and that was sort of the main crux of really learning a career. But I was always in selling, in sales. And so my career in IT, different companies, was all about selling. And towards the end of that, as a sales manager and a sales enablement specialist, which is teaching others to sell and helping others be successful in that sort of corporate career. About 3 years ago, my family and I decided that we wanted to leave Sydney. I have two teenagers, older teenagers, and a husband, of course. And we decided that we wanted to leave the crazy, stressful life of Sydney and move to the beautiful Sunshine Coast, where my husband still works remotely. The kids are very settled locally in school and university. And that's where I decided to use all of that learning from travel and selling and corporate and all sorts of things and start my own business to help others to do that sort of thing for their own businesses.
Awesome. And so if you were to articulate, what you actually do to help people in their businesses, what is that?
I give people the courage and the confidence to put themselves out and sell themselves and their goods or services in their business. Because what I found in networking and meeting some amazing business people on the Sunshine Coast who are very, very passionate about what they do, they haven't had this career in selling and all the training and all that wonderful investment that I had in my career. So I felt that I could certainly help people understand that selling's not a dirty word, and that if you're in business, you have to sell. But people don't want to be salesy and icky and pushy and aggressive, and that's exactly what we shouldn't be. There are still some bad examples of that out there, but not as many as you think. And so a lot of people don't feel comfortable because they think, I don't want to be like that. And so I'm all about not being like that, learning how to be very professional in selling, and being confident to inject yourself into what you're selling, because that's your biggest differentiator in a very competitive market.
Yeah. And so what's your why? Why do you do what you do? Why do you love this?
I love it for two reasons. And the first one is a bit selfish. It gives me a lot of personal satisfaction, and it gives me a way to continue to feel that I add value to the world, in this case the business world, and that everything I've done hasn't stopped or hasn't finished, that I'm still learning too, that everything I can do, that I'm giving my value. That's my first reason, which is the selfish one. The second one is that I can, that's part of giving back, in that I've taken everything I've learnt and all the wonderful opportunities that I've been given, and I want others to have that sort of same basis of knowledge and education, where they may not have that opportunity to be part of major leadership courses that are run by Telstra's CEO and that type of thing, which is where I sort of had that opportunity.
Awesome. Okay, and so when was your moment, or can you think of a moment where you did kind of wake up and realise that you actually already had everything that you needed to be all that you ever wanted to be?
That's a really good question. And to really give that the best credence, I'm going to say it was not that long ago. And it was when I moved to the Sunshine Coast. And having come out of corporate Sydney, and perhaps a little naively thinking that I could bring my wonderful corporate role with me and work remotely, which is I really wanted to do that, but it just didn't work out logistically, that I fell into a little bit of a heap, actually, and I can be quite honest about that, and thought, what am I going to do? And what I said before about wanting to continue adding my value to the world, and where my expertise is best served, that I had to think about, how am I going to do that now? And it took a fair bit of time and speaking to a lot of wonderful people, and I met you, Vickie, and I met all sorts of wonderful business leaders on the Sunshine Coast, and some coaches and some just friends and just so many different walks of life, that through talking to them and just naturally giving of my mentoring advice as they asked, that was where I woke up and thought, I've got everything I need to be able to package this up and offer it to those who need it. So there's not one pivotal moment. Actually, there is one pivotal moment. Perhaps I'll describe that. I was at a networking group, Women in Business networking group, just a small group. We were in a church hall. That was one evening. And it was one of those meetings where each woman would stand up and talk about their business and talk about their elevator pitch. And you could see that there was some hesitation in the room. But as we walked around the table, we got to one young lady who sat there and said, do I have to stand up? And everyone said, yeah, of course, yeah, stand up. We've got you. It's all good. It's all safe here. And she sort of got up and was very hesitant. She said, I just can't talk about myself. I can't sell. I just don't like it. I just don't know what to say. She actually said that to us. And so I said, well, what do you do? And she said, I'm a beautician. I said, great. I said, what do you like about being a beautician? And she started to tell us about how she loved that she could change somebody's day, change her client's day. They walk in, they've dropped the kids at school, they're feeling quite harried, and she spends some time with them, makes them look beautiful or does a face or whatever that she's doing with them, and they walk out almost a changed person. And that's what she really loved about being a beautician. And I said, we asked a few more questions about different things that she does. And so I said to her at the end, do you know what you just did then? And she said, what? I said, you were selling to us. She said, no, I hate that. And I'm like, no, you were showing us your passion, your purpose, and why you do what you do. But most importantly, you showed us the problem you solve for somebody, which is the problem they may walk in with a low self-esteem or having a crazy day. The problem you solve for that woman is that you make them feel better about themselves for the day. So it was. I often relate that story because it's like, this is what I need to do. I need to help people unlock their passion, their purpose, just like you do, Vickie, but in particular around their business as to what is the problem they solve for their customers. And to talk about that in a way that doesn't feel salesy and icky and pushy. It's really, really natural.
And that doesn't
authentic.
land that way either.
And that's right. And that comes from skills and practice and coaching and all those sorts of things. But simply turning that message on its head was that pivotal point for me.
Well, I love it. Okay, so if you were to, along those same lines, and I suppose even, with this, the lady, the beautician, if you were to give her or our listeners one piece of advice that you learnt that really changed things for you, what might that be?
There is a saying or a mantra that I've heard many times, but I heard it, I guess, when I was in my mid-20s, working at Telstra, and I was part of the leadership development program at the time. And we were all pretty young, so everything that we were learning and hearing on that program was all new to us. And it was just simply, if it's to be, it's up to me. Now, that's a famous saying, and I'm not even sure who first coined that phrase, but my piece of advice is really that it is up to you. You can control what you think, what you do, what you say, and you can't control the people around you. So that's my piece of advice, is work on you, be the best that you can be, and there is someone out there for you in business and in life.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. So is there any other life lesson or tool that you use frequently that you could share?
For me, I'm always looking for the silver linings in everything. In some cases, it's very difficult. There are tragic stories that we hear locally, not even locally, but from anywhere around the world. And, the world's going through a crazy time right now. There's got to be silver linings somewhere. They may not always be evident. And it's not a case of, oh, she'll be right, it'll be okay. It's a case of, well, what can I learn from this that is going to make me better or help me to work through this situation? Whether it's a loss of a life, a crazy virus that is permeating our life at the moment, traffic, weather, all sorts of things. There's got to be an upside to it. It was just a few weeks ago, we hadn't had rain here on the Sunshine Coast for such a long time. We had fires and everything was going on. It was so dry. And when it did rain, it rained like crazy. And I just said to everybody, isn't it wonderful that for once we're not complaining about the weather, we're not complaining about this rain, because look at what it's doing for us. So that's a bit of a philosophical answer to that question, but I always talk to my kids about what good could come of this. And it helps in most cases.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking for what's right instead of looking for what's wrong definitely works. Okay, so the big question. So, Kym, have you got this thing called life?
Yeah, I think I have at the moment. And, if you ask me that question next week, I may answer differently. I'm very independent. And that sort of came from growing up in a family. I was the youngest of four, and our mother left the family when I was only 5. So we all had to grow up really quickly. And I had lots of great family and neighbourly support. But I think from that, I had to get life for myself very quickly. And I've hung on to that throughout. Some people often say to me, you're too independent, you should reach out and ask for help more. And so I've had to learn that part of it as well. Last week, I would have said an absolute 100% yes. Today, feeling a little fragile from some tragic news over the weekend, so I'm looking for ways to really get it today. But ask me next week as well, and I'm sure I can say definitely yes.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? It's about being with the flow of the moment as well. And, maybe you've got it now, maybe you're going to have it next week, maybe you won't, but it's actually about allowing it to be.
Yeah,
as well.
Exactly. And I said to my daughter this morning, just allow yourself to work through the day. and to feel what's happening throughout the day, and don't be afraid to feel it.
So if somebody was listening and they were kind of thinking, well, I don't know if I've got this. I don't know. How could I get this? What advice would you give them as to how they might?
Reflection is always a great thing. And gratitude. And when I moved to the Sunshine Coast, a lot of people, through social media, showed a lot of gratitude for things. And it's not something that I had really occurred to me that was really important. It's a bit like the silver linings. There's always something you can be grateful for, because there are so many around us who may not have what we have, and be grateful for that. And so those that are saying, how do I get this? Being grateful will help. There would be a number of things. It's sharing, and a lot of us have trouble asking for things and asking for help, but just sharing how you might be feeling, or sharing a problem. And even though someone may not be able to help with that problem, just sometimes talking about it can help. Well, it does help. I won't say can. I think they say a problem shared is a problem halved.
Yeah.
And have I been always good at that? Not at all. I've certainly bottled a lot of stuff up about everything. I'm a bit of an overthinker, I have to admit. But when I'm grateful, then the overthinking I just sort of slap myself around and say, oh, for God's sake, get on with it.
Yeah.
And learn from it, basically.
Awesome. Okay, so I have 2 more questions and I'm going to ask them together.
Okay.
So the first one is if there is anything else you would like to share. And then the second one is there an offer that you would like to make to our listeners?
Yes, I guess I'm very excited today because today is the first day of my pre-launch marketing campaign for my new book that is being released on the 31st of March.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Very exciting.
Yeah, and thank you. And I hope that you're talking about helping people in business. So my book is called Selling with Heart, Growing Business with Authenticity and Trust. And those corporate years that I had in selling in a very male-dominated world, some of the things that I was asked to do just didn't feel right for me. And I paved my way being me and being more heartfelt than perhaps many others around me weren't. And so my book is about being able to sell in a way, as I explained before, in a way that's really natural and comfortable to you. And so I hope that the book will help those businesswomen that I met in that church hall. It could help someone who works for a large corporate company who's been asked to follow a particular process that doesn't feel right for them. Or it's just for anybody that wants to, have just selling themselves to their family or friends, or it's okay to sell is really the thing. So that's what I wanted to share. I have a book launch coming up on the Sunshine Coast on the 31st of March, so I'd love lots of people to come along to that and have some fun. And so my offer is going to be, if anyone's interested in my book, they can, as of today, get it at a pre-launch price, which is $19.95.
Yep.
We'll go back to $24.95 after the launch. So there's 2 offers. One is love them to come along to my launch, depending on when they're listening to this podcast. 2, to get a hold of my book if as something that can help them in their business and even in their life in terms of understanding themselves and how they sell their ideas to family and friends.
Perfect.
Oh, there is one more offer.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm always up
more
for...
offers.
No, I'm always up for helping someone, in a sales coaching sense. So if anyone would like some time with me, just 30 minutes on the phone to just run through a couple of ideas or something that's perhaps they're not feeling comfortable with, I'm happy to have a chat free of charge on the phone to help them with their sales.
So a free 30-minute consult with Kym.
Yes, that's it.
That's perfect. All right. Well, so thank you so much for your time today, for coming in and for sharing some amazing bits of wisdom. Thank you to all of you guys for listening today too. This is Vickie Magic signing off with Wake Up, You've Got This.